Fascinating conversations. 3 northern states are having their way at the Supreme Court at the moment, and INEC is giving assurances amidst the threat to the 2023 polls. If INEC says it is ready, are you ready? Because the 2023 verdict begins right now. The Supreme Court of Nigeria has restrained the federal government from implementing the February 10 deadline for the old 20, 200, 500, and 1,000 Naira notes to stop being legal tenders. And the INEC chairman is giving assurances that it is ready for the 2023 elections. The president and the CBN governor met today in what a lot of people say is a continuation of conversation around the Naira notes controversy. We hear some details and the legalities of all of these issues tonight. Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is the 2023 verdict live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimbaloye in Abuja. The countdown continues. 16 days to the 2023 elections. Nigerians are anticipating the opportunity to elect their leaders in an election a lot of people say will be perhaps the most intense and the keenly contested race in the history of our politics. February this year, very few weeks away, Nigerians will be counting and making sure that their votes count across the country, and we're keeping tabs on all of that. Well, the talk is getting more intense, and election preparation is rife. We continue to monitor the major stories for you, and tonight will not be an exception to the rule that we have created for you as far as this election is concerned. But before we get deeper into all of the major conversation for tonight, let's check out some of your election news updates.
Former President of Nigeria, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, has expressed optimism that nothing will stop the February and March general elections from holding as scheduled by the Independent National Electoral Commission. Obasanjo stated that in spite of the ongoing protest across the country over scarcity of new Naira notes and feel with its attendant effect on socio-economic well-being of the people, Nigeria should approach the election with all the seriousness it deserves. The Nigeria Immigration Service has confiscated a total of 6,216 national ID and permanent voter cards from some migrants in 21 border states in the country. The Comptroller General of Immigration, Mr. Issa Jere, made the revelation at a retreat organized for senior officers of the service in Abuja. Mr. Idris stressed that borders will be closed during the elections. The governorship candidate of the Socio-Democratic Party in Rivers State, Mr. Magnus Abbey, has raised an alarm over alleged plans by the People's Democratic Party in the state in collaboration with the police to arrest some of its key leaders on frivolous charges. Mr. Abbey says the aim is to intimidate members of his party to stop them from mobilizing support for his governorship ambition. Governor Umaru Fintiri of Adamawa State is assuring communities devastated by insurgency of his administration's readiness to construct abandoned road projects destroyed during the insurgency in the state. The governor gave the assurance when he led the People's Democratic Party campaign train to canvass for votes in communities affected by insurgency in the northern part of the state. The Ogun State's chapter of the Action Alliance has flagged off its governorship campaign in Abeokuta, the state capital, with the unveiling and presentation of flag of the party to its candidates at all levels. The ceremony held at the party's secretariat in the state capital was also attended by its governorship candidate, Samuel Olufemi Adeyemi. The African Parliamentary Advocacy and Reform Group is lamenting what it describes as low interest in the National Assembly elections. Speaking at a press conference in Abuja, the lead partner, African Parliamentary Advocacy and Reform Group, Mr. Chibuzo Okirike, says although media platforms are saturated with the presidential campaign rallies and media engagements with presidential candidates, little or no attention has been channeled towards the electoral campaigns for the National Assembly elections. The group is therefore calling on the media and all relevant stakeholders to use the remaining 15 days window to focus attention on National Assembly elections.
Of course, we'll tell you every time that this program is interactive, and we're seeing some of your views you're sending to us on some of the topics that we are following tonight. Don't forget to continue to send those views in, and we get some of them read on the program. 2023 verdict at channelstv.com is the email if you need to send one. Hashtag 2023 verdict is a hashtag that you'll find on all our social media platforms. So everyone, stand by. Let's test the temperature. What is the campaign looking like today? We're keeping track of all of that for you. And the state of the race, this is what it looks like right now. The Supreme Court of Nigeria has restrained the federal government from the implementation of the February 10 deadline of the old 200, 500 and 1,000 Naira notes to stop being a legal tender. Three northern states, Kaduna, Kogi and Zamfara, had in a motion ex parte filed on February 3rd, prayed the Apex Court to halt the Central Bank of Nigeria Naira design policy. And the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has affirmed that the two major encumbrances faced by the Commission have been resolved. For this reason, he is assured that the elections will hold as scheduled. The INEC boss identified petrol scarcity and currency challenge as the major problems, which have now been resolved.
So be rest assured that the election will hold as scheduled on the 25th of February for national and on the 11th of March for the state elections.
The presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Bola Tinubu, today took his presidential campaign to Kogi State, where he promised the people of the state that his administration, if elected, will revive the Ajaokuta State Company and make the state an industrial hub if voted into office. And the presidential candidate of the PDP, Atiku Abubakar, who's also in the northern state of Yobe, in continuation of his presidential campaign, has pledged to open all international borders to allow economic activities as well as improve security in the country, especially the northeastern part of the country. And those are the major issues in the land today. And as far as the campaign train is concerned, so a major story today, if you heard, if you have not, is a Supreme Court judge ruling, or order rather, restraining the federal government from implementing the February 10 deadline for the old 200, 500 and 1,000 Naira notes for to stop being legal tenders. Three northern states, which are Kaduna, Kogi, and Zamfara, they went to the Supreme Court. Some people will say the right place to go, because if there is a dispute between the federal government and the state, Supreme Court usually settles them. And so they went and prayed the Apex Court to halt the Central Bank of Nigeria's Naira redesign policy. Let's get some expert opinion on this. And there's some confusions. Don't forget, there was a High Court order saying that the CBN or the federal government that cannot suspend the policy. Now, the Supreme Court has weighed in. This is an injunction in some lawyers would describe it, meaning hold on this particular matter until we hear the substantive matter. So let's get some perspective from a very senior lawyer in the line, senior advocate of Nigeria, Mike Ozekhome, a professor of law. Congratulations on your professorial cadre.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you.
It's good to see you.
Welcome, Nigerians.
Yeah. Our brand new elections
country we have here.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Country.
Everyone that's come here said so. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Good to see you again, Mr. Ozekhome, or Professor Ozekhome.
In fact, someone congratulating me said, you know, Nigerians love titles.
Yeah.
He said, he started the letter like this: High Chief, Professor, Doctor, Sir, Barrister, Michael Ozekhome. And I said, so which one do you want me to wear?
Which one do you prefer, though?
Well, I've used Chief long enough.
Yeah.
I've used Doctor long enough. I've used Sir long enough. I think there's no harm.
Is using professor. Professor.
I'm a professor.
And you look professorial too. Thank you so much, Prof. So let's get started. The matter before us this evening is the Supreme Court and the order given today. Help us make sense of the order by the Supreme Court, which it gave on the Naira swap policy of the CBN in view of the existing order of the Federal High Court, of the High Court.
I will start like this. It's like the relationship between the Agama lizard and the crocodile. They all belong to the same class. They look alike. But we know who is superior. In the hierarchy of Nigerian laws, the Supreme Court is the apex court. That is why they call it Supreme Court. Supreme, beyond which there is no other court. And what that means is that all other courts in the hierarchy of courts must blow muted trumpets when matters are being heard. So, notwithstanding the fact that a high court or federal high court had granted an order telling the CBN you can stop this Naira swap policy on the 10th of February, as you have decided to do. The Supreme Court today said, hello, don't do that. Allow the old and new Naira, allow everything to be in the same position. We call it status quo ante bellum. The state of affairs before the crisis broke out. Allow it to continue. Come back on the 15th of February and let us hear you people. Let me say this. Let me enter a caveat for Nigerians. The Supreme Court has not decided the matter. All it has done is to fall back to a decision like Kotoyo versus CBN, that in matters of extreme urgency, you can grant an interim order, even if it be ex parte, to prevent the subject matter of the suit being truncated. If, for example, the Supreme Court does not make that order, or did not make that order, and the only order existing is that of the High Court, it means that the CBN, by 10th of this month, will stop the use of all old notes. But what the Supreme Court has said is, just wait. Let us listen to you people. Not that it has decided that Zamfara, Kogi, and Kaduna states have any valid case that is actionable, because the action is already being challenged with a preliminary objection. It is another way of saying, let us first drive away the fox before we blame the fowl for wandering too far into the forest. So it has not decided. It has just left the matter in a state, what we call status quo, ante bellum. Let it just remain now until we hear you people. So, but one advice I think I want to profile here is that if you notice, the ruling by the Supreme Court was by a full constitutional panel of 7 justices. This is the type of case I think the Supreme Court should invite amicus curiae for singular, amicus curiae for many. That is, friends of the court. They should invite very respected senior lawyers to come and give their opinions in writing to the Supreme Court. And I also believe, if you ask me, 3 attorneys general of 3 states, Kogi, Kaduna, and Zamfara, have gone to court. Question: any decision arrived at by the Supreme Court, will it not affect the other 33 attorneys general of Nigeria? The answer is in the affirmative. It will. I also think that this is the type of matter in which the Supreme Court should also, suo motu, even if they do not apply to be joined, join all the attorneys general of the Federation, so that the matter could be decided once and for all.
For non-legal minds, they will be asking the question, why did the case just went straight to the Supreme Court?
Yes, that is going to be a very contentious matter. I'm not here to prefer solution or to side one party against the other, but I think it will be in the interest of Nigeria to throw up the issues so that particularly non-lawyers, non-legal minds will be able to understand the issues arising. There's what we call the powers of the Supreme Court. It has appellate jurisdiction. It also has original jurisdiction. Appellate jurisdiction is that a matter travels all the way, maybe from an area court or magistrate court, through the High Court, Federal High Court, through the Court of Appeal, and up to the Supreme Court. Then the Supreme Court can hear it. That's its appellate jurisdiction. But there is also what we call its original jurisdiction, which is in section 232, subsection 1 of the 1999 Constitution. And the original jurisdiction has to be for cases that concern whether facts or law, in which the existence of a legal right is involved between a state and the Federation, or between states and the Federation, or between a state and a state. The Supreme Court has original jurisdiction
To come in and settle the conflict. Let us see. What happens to the case in at the High Court, where some political parties had gone and they got an injunction of the court to tell CBN not to suspend the policy? What happens to that now that this case has gone to the Supreme Court?
I've already answered it. I said the judgment or the ruling of the High Court must blow muted trumpet. This is the big masquerade. The Supreme Court of the land has come out to speak. The little masquerade.
We'll have to keep short.
We have to keep short.
All right. Let's look at the implications.
Look at it this way.
Okay.
There will be chaos and anarchy and confusion if 2 courts that are dissimilar in terms of potency and power begin to wrestle with each other, throwing mud on each other. The Supreme Court is called the apex court. And in the case of Adegoke Motors Nigeria Limited versus Adesanya, the Supreme Court said the Supreme Court is final in the sense of all finality. It is final not because it is infallible. It is infallible because it is final. So we can't be talking about a judgment or a ruling of a high court here when the big master has come out to roar. The lion has roared. The antelopes, for now, must keep quiet.
Let's look
so that there will be no confusion.
Let's look at
That's why you call it the hierarchy of courts.
Let's look at the implications of all of these cases to the average Nigerian. And I mean, maybe you have some of the new notes. Maybe you don't have any problem with the policy, or I mean, just like some other Nigerians. But in your own view, Leonard Sik, what do you think are the implications of this policy, the timing, the manner in which it has gone on the average Nigerian?
Let me shock you on Nigerians. I only saw the 500 Naira note just one piece.
The new note.
The new notes. I saw it. And someone said, that's a new note. And I said, this note that looks faded, even before it has been used, I compared it with the present 500 Naira notes bearing the portrait of Zik of Africa, Dr. Nnamdi Benjamin Azikiwe. And I saw that the quality is simply not comparable. One looks like a very fake version of the other. So, yours sincerely, I've only seen one note, 500. I've not seen any other. So the question of even having money.
So you've experienced the scarcity too?
Now, of course. Now, let me tell you what is going on. Nigeria over-dramatizes. That is why I've said we don't even practice democracy.
What do we then practice?
That democracy, that system of government defined on November 19, 1863 by Abraham Lincoln in his Gettysburg Declaration. I've said elsewhere that we practice one, electionocracy. Electionocracy is a system of government by which every 4 years we go into the ritual of electing our governors and president and senators. And after electing them, they use 1 year thanking the electors. They use the second year working. By the third year, they have started electionary campaigns. So there are no democracy dividends. Now, I said that is electionocracy. We also practice judocracy. Judocracy is a system of government in which voters vote. Votes are counted. The votes counted. Then the quarreling politicians go before a court of law and start fighting each other. The matters get to court. A governor is midwifed and delivered in the bowels of either the High Court, Court of Appeal, or Supreme Court, which may go against the will of the people as expressed in the ballot box. That is what we call judocracy. I also say we practice executocracy. Executocracy is a system where the executive arm of government superimposes itself and terrorizes the other arms of government using its hooded security agents to terrorize them. Then finally, I said we practice legislatocracy, a system where the legislature is a Mr. Yes, Sir, President, or Mr. Take a Bow, Senate, when a person is to be screened. And this legislature makes laws not for the good governance of Nigeria, but for everything where budgets are padded and where under sections 88 and 89 of the Constitution, which are supposed to be their oversight functions, they have to ask for padding of their own budget before they can approve. So these are the systems of government I say we operate.
You don't think that we have grown at all in our democratic
Oh, no,
practice?
we have not grown. Look, Sheung Okimbaloye.
From 1999.
We have not grown. It's stunted at best. It's stunted growth. I will call it the fate of the barber's chair. Look at it. This is the fate of the barber's chair of perpetual motion on its axis without progress. That's what we have been experiencing.
Oscillating at one spot.
Oscillating. At times even retrogressing.
But let them say,
just a moment. Let me tell you why I'm saying this. How many Nigerians know that after Queen Elizabeth II died in September last year, that his son, Prince Charles III, who is now King Charles III, has since become King of England? Let me surprise you, and many Nigerians who may not know. The Bank of England, since December last year, rolled out a policy that by mid-2024, that's giving about 1.5, almost 2 years ahead, the present £5, £10, £50, 20 will see to be legal tenders. So between now and then, the Queen of England's face and head are still of the currency. Now, how many Nigerians know that the title Queen's Counsel, QC, which is the equivalent of our SAN, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, has since been changed to KC, King's Counsel. There was no brouhaha. There was no rokos. There was no wahala. How come a mere change of currency by the Central Bank of Nigeria should lead to a country bleeding, asphyxiating, politicians screaming, common people dying on the streets, fighting? Did you not see some viral video? I cried. I was with my wife. I shed hot tears. The young man stripped himself naked to the shame of a country. What was he saying? He said, I have over 500,000 Naira in this bank. All I want to make my family survive, if I can just get 100,000, I will be okay. They told him he could not withdraw. He had no old notes. He had no new ones, but he had the money in the bank. The young man went berserk. The kind of things that lead people to commit suicide. He stripped himself completely naked. I burst out crying. I told my wife, I wish I know where this young man is based, or where he is from, or how to reach him. I will rush some money to him. I cried. I'm not saying metaphorically. I'm saying literally. I cried. If my wife is watching this program, she will know that I cried. And she had to give me a tissue paper to wipe my face. I was touched. So, why do we use simple policies to self-immolate, self-destruct? How come a mere policy? I mean, we have been having, the CBN has been there. The time frame has been there in the last 1 year, 2 years. You could have started a policy like this gradually. I'm not saying the fiscal policy is not good. I must not be misquoted. It has its own inherent advantages. Mopping up money from the lecherous and satanic and luciferic hands of politicians, which they use to buy votes. I'm not therefore talking about the merits. It has great merits. But in talking about merits, you also have to look at the disadvantages. They first started by saying you can only withdraw 100,000 Naira in 1 week for an individual, and 500,000 Naira in 1 week for a company. When we cried out, they expanded it and said, okay, an individual can now withdraw 500,000 Naira a week, and a company, 5 million Naira. So you are saying a company like Julius Berger, Dantata and so, Cetraco Nigeria Limited, that do big business, road constructions, the only money they can withdraw in a week is 5 million Naira. And an individual, when my running costs of my chambers alone, my running costs alone in a week is more than that amount they are talking for a company. You are saying all I can withdraw is 500,000 Naira. That was the joke of the century.
If you were to advise, because elections are just 16 days away, and my question would be, would it have any consequence on the conduct of the election? Although the INEC chairman said, we're all clear, it won't have any consequence. But for the voters, in terms of the logistics of INEC, they say they're all clear. But for the voters, would this policy impact on the psyche, or in any way they affect the conduct or the voters in any way?
It will affect politicians and vote buyers more than the ordinary citizen. Because usually a voter registers close to his house. There's no question about that. In some isolated cases, they may have registered in a place far away. But the people that will be most hit by this policy, and that is why those who have been crying more have been the politicians, at times using the ordinary man and woman as surrogates to protest and barricade roads so as to show how bad the policy is. Because they no longer have access to cheap money. But by the way, a friend asked me, he said some of the politicians may not even be affected. I asked him why. And it surprised me. And it was a matter of fact. He said many of these politicians we are talking about actually own the banks. So if a bank is to dispense money, it will first give money to its organ, his boss, before thinking of others. Nigeria is a captured state. Nigeria has been captured
Well, I mean, can you explain?
by non-state actors, by the elites, rich individuals. There are some individuals that are now richer than Nigeria of our 21 trillion naira current budget. Is it not only about 8 trillion that we can say in terms of revenue? The rest is to be borrowed. So Nigeria is borrowing her future and future generations to the 10th generation. We are in trouble. Make no mistake about that.
Let me take you slightly away from the conversation of the CBN policy to yet another legal matter. I'd like to get your view on the Supreme Court judgment on the Yobe Senatorial District election, which submits that the current Senate president is the candidate of the APC for the Senatorial District.
Well, that judgment, with all respect, actually came to me as a surprise. What I've tried to do as a constitutional lawyer is to discuss issues dispassionately. Because if you discuss issues based on your likeness for one individual or one political party or the other, by the time those individuals or those political parties are no longer there, you may find yourself in future beclouded by that your past genie that you let out of the bottle. So that is why I can comment on that case, because it is a judgment that has been decided.
Delivered, yeah.
Delivered. And I'm a teacher, I'm a lecturer. I'm a professor of law. So I critique and I criticize. The electoral act is clear. Look at sections 83, 84. Look at the Constitution itself. If a candidate dies, for example, the political party can bring forward another candidate for them to hold a fresh primary election. In the same way, a candidate may decide to resign and say, yes, I've won this position as a senator. I'm not going again. Then all that the political party will do is to hold another fresh primary. We don't call it a rerun. It's not a rerun. It's a fresh primary under the Electoral Act.
That is what the Electoral Act provides.
Thank you.
Shall I read? I mean, for our viewers.
Yeah.
That's section 84.
84. That's what I said, yeah.
Section 84(1) says, a political party seeking to nominate candidates for elections under this act shall hold primaries for aspirants to all elective positions which shall be monitored by the commission.
Yeah.
Subsection 2 says, the procedure for the nomination of candidates by political parties for the various elective positions shall be direct, indirect primaries, or consensus.
Yeah.
Then, yeah, that's what it says.
Check 83, let's see.
Yeah. Yeah, 83 is also talking about monitoring of political parties.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess where you're talking about is where it talks about
check 81. Trying to zero in on this section.
Yeah.
Dealing with a candidate voluntarily withdrawing.
Okay.
No, 33, sorry. Go to 33. Go to 33. Go to 33.
Political parties changing candidates. A political party shall not be allowed to change or substitute its candidate whose name has been submitted under Section 29 of this Act, except in the case of death or withdrawal by the candidate.
Yeah. Yeah, go.
Provided that in the case of such withdrawal or death of a candidate, the political party affected shall, within 14 days of the occurrence of the event, hold a fresh primary election to produce and submit a fresh candidate to the commission for the election concerned.
That's the section. Section 33. In case of death or withdrawal by candidate, the political party will now hold another fresh primary to be monitored by INEC. Coming to this case of Machina, and Lawan, the Senate president. Nigerians beheld when Senator Lawan contested the presidency. That is, he contested for the position of president in their primaries, in the primaries of the APC. He did not win. If Machina had withdrawn voluntarily under Section 33 of the Electoral Act, then a fresh primary will be held within 14 days. But the facts that I have that are in the public domain is that barely a day after the presidential primaries of the APC in Abuja, Machina, who had already won, was said not to be the candidate again, but that it was now Senate President Lawan. The question there came, when did APC give notice to INEC that we are going to have another fresh primary? Did Machina himself, who was already elected, did he say, I have withdrawn, such as to even give an opportunity for a fresh primary to be conducted? You cannot have two obas in one palace.
But I mean, let us say, so, the premise upon which the Supreme Court gave this judgment was on the procedural law.
Yeah.
That the filing of the case at the trial court was wrong. And upon that technicalities, the Supreme Court struck out the case.
The Supreme Court has warned us again and again that the era of technicalities over substance, the era of form over substance, the era of technicality over justice is gone and buried forever. If you look at the case of Attorney General of Oyo State versus Bello versus Attorney General of Oyo State, decided in 1986 by the Supreme Court, you will see the beautiful dictum of great jurists like Oputa, like Kayode Esho. He said, and when the spirit, when the apparition of technicality comes out of their graves, clanking their manacled legs, he said, you should put them back in the graves where they belong and do substantial justice. We are talking about serious matter as the representative of the people. And the people have chosen their own representative. Then you are elevating the issue of form, procedure, of how a case was filed, to say a person who did not participate in the primaries, who was never voted for by the people, we now go and represent the people against a person who was popularly voted for. Let me tell you what is going to happen. I can see what you call protest votes in that constituency, in that senatorial zone. With all respect, the Supreme Court is not just a court of law. It's also a court of policy.
Policy.
And that is why I'm always defending the judiciary and the Supreme Court, because when we violate it, when we allow it to be violated, there will be trouble.
All right. Let us say, let's close on this note. We just have 30 seconds and I'd like to get your view. Since the emergence of the new electoral law of 2022 and this election that we have at hand, what do you expect from the 2023 election? What are your expectations? Just in 30 seconds.
Expectations, 2023 elections, Nigeria will not break into smithereens, as some people have predicted, some emergency pastors, imams, Nigeria will break. Nigeria is not going to break. God is a Nigerian. we will still wake up after 25th of February. Nigeria will still be united. Yes, there will be violence in some places, here and there, pockets of violence. The beavers has come to stay, but even within the beavers, there could still be some form of manipulation, but not on the kind of large scale we have been seeing before now. It will minimize it.
All right.
There will still be electoral malpractices, but not at the level we have been seeing it. And Nigeria will still be there. But let me say this. The next coming president, whosoever you may be, and listen to me loud and clear, your first function, the first thing, even if that is your only thing, if that is the only thing you do throughout your session, convene a national conference, whether you call it sovereign or whatever.
All right.
Allow the people to make a people's driven, autochthonous, indigenous constitution by the people, for themselves. Subject it to a referendum and plebiscite of the people so that you can have a people's constitution,
right.
not the present decree number 24 of 1999 that we call the 1999 Constitution.
Thank you so much indeed.
God bless Nigeria.
Professor, Doctor,
Yeah.
Barrister, Chief.
Don't be like that person who wrote me the letter.
I don't want to be found guilty of not giving you your rightful titles. But thank you so much. Always a pleasure learning law from you. Thank you so much.
Nigeria is a beautiful country. When you travel out, when I travel out of Nigeria, within 10 days, I'm already itching to come back. There's no country like Nigeria.
Absolutely. We love this country, and God bless Nigeria.
Dolly Parton's coat of many colors.
Thank you so much.
God bless Nigeria.
Mike Ozekhome, as an advocate of Nigeria. We'll take a break, everyone. Thank you so much, everyone. Welcome back to the program. 28 states will be having governorship election on the 11th of March. One of such states that you need to look out for is Ogun State. And tonight, there is one man who court is held down for several months considering the lawsuit from the APC and Labour Party. But the appeal court gave a judgment in January allowing him and about 23 candidates of the party for the legislative positions to get back on the ballot. Mr. Biyi Otegbeye is the governorship candidate of the ADC. He's joining us live virtually from Abeokuta. Thank you so much, Mr. Otegbeye, and it's good to see you tonight. Let's begin the conversation. You're perhaps seen as a latecomer, considering the fact that you've been facing a lot of legal battle. Now that you've gotten onto the race, you have a governor that is seeking re-election. You have a PDP candidate that's not the first time that is seeking office. These two men are giant and heavyweights in their own right. Why do you think that the people of Ogun State will be looking in your direction at this time?
Thank you, Sheon. Let me first express some courtesy by greeting Nigerians and the good people of Ogun State. I'm also happy to tell you that we have finally overcome the setback of the several lawsuits filed against us. Let me say this. They filed a total number of 24 lawsuits, and all the lawsuits went on appeal, and those cases were reversed by the Court of Appeal. So we are set to stand election. But then, throughout the period of the litigation, we were never bothered at all because we knew that justice would prevail at last. So it wasn't a question of folding our arms. We have always been working underneath. Our supporters have been going from house to house, motivating the good people of Ogun State. And we have always monitored what has been going on with the poor governance that we are experiencing now. As for the giants, I am not aware that anybody is a giant. Ogun State is so rich and diverse in quality of people that everybody in their own rights have qualities to contribute and values to give. So I don't see anybody as giants or whatever. But then, if you are talking about the incumbency, yes, he is the governor now and he exercises some control. But then at the end of the day, it is not those controls that will decide the direction of election. It is the verdict of the good people of Ogun State on his governance.
Now, let me ask you straight up. So we get to talk about some other parts of these election that are important for the Ogun State people. Now, in one of the interviews, you were quoted to have said that I will defeat Abiodun with the help of Amosun. What do you mean by that?
Well, that wasn't the exact quote, and I'm sure those who pulled that out, they had their own reason. But let me say this. The endorsement of Senator Ibikunle Amosun had given us in ADC a big boost. And I need to tell you, if you see what Governor Amosun did in 8 years, many people have equated it to record achievements of what can only be done in about 30 years. And his legacy still speaks for him. So to get endorsement from somebody like that, it's a goodwill. And I cherish it, I thrive on it. And I am sure, one way or the other, that support is going to create a great bounce. But is it enough to win election? No, certainly not. There are so many other critical stakeholders that are supporting us, but the accumulation of all these goodwills and support from broad-based across Ogun State will certainly take us to Kemoson. As for whether we are going to get there, I can tell you without any shadow of doubt, I will be the next governor of Ogun State come May 29 later this year.
You seem to be very confident. And so my very first question, I'll go back to it in part. The confidence, I like to know where it's coming from. So no one wins election by just springing out from the blues. Springing out from the blues in this sense is that ADC as a political party might not be seen in the scheme of the politics of Ogun State as a party that has far-reaching structure. How then do you hope to win an election considering political parties such as the APC, with your very good friend, Senator Amosun, who has governed that state for 2 terms on the platform of the APC, and Governor Abiodun who spent another term of 4 years, ostensibly 12 years of APC in Ogun State, and you will see so much that there are other governors on the platform of the PDP in Ogun State. Those 2 parties might be referred to as the party with very strong rooting in Ogun State. So with ADC, or which of these structures are you using? Is it from other political parties, or where is the confidence coming from?
Well, Sheung, thank you. If you are close to the politics of Ogun State, it goes beyond party lines. The politics of Ogun State today is determined by the performance, largely by the performance of the present administration. As for the platform that we are using ADC, and I need to take you through some background. African Democratic Congress is not new to the people of Ogun State. That party contested all elections in 2019 and secured almost 120,000 votes. That's not a new party. And then number 2, quite a number of us that became dissatisfied with APC, and I put that figure as close to 56% of the old ADC migrated as a result of disaffection, disagreement, in the party and we move to ADC. So what you are going to see, it's a combination of the old brand ADC and a little over half of the present APC. So the APC you are celebrating supposedly is a much cannibalized APC, and they cannibalize themselves. Then number two, why am I confident that this administration will leave? Is their records. Because if you conduct a survey from Ogun East, Ogun West, Ogun Central, across the length and breadth of our state, everybody is tired of this administration. Number one, they are ill prepared for governance. Number two, their regime is the worst in terms of transparency and being truthful to the people. Number three, they have literally messed up the civil service. Can you imagine a situation where people are not being paid their salary on time, where retirees are not being remunerated on time, where the facilities have largely been degraded, and everybody is literally tired. So, as I said before, it's their record that will speak for them. So they made it a lot easier, but then it's not just their own failure of governance, it's also the quality that ABC is bringing into the table. Look at myself. I have my own background, with due respect, from the private sector. I am an insurance expert, and at the age of 20, I graduated from University of Lagos. I promoted Regency Alliance Insurance PLC at the age of 31. Today, that company is quoted on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. I am also a lawyer. Aside from all this, I've been exposed to governance and a lot of what is going on in our grassroots. From 2011, I have promoted an NGO called Building Opportunities for Tomorrow. And that NGO gave me an opportunity to go around the grassroots. The focus of our NGO was to provide Medicare and support. And through that NGO, I related with everybody across the length and breadth of our state. So I understand the problem and peculiar challenges of our people. And so, because of that, we have come out with a holistic package to fix Ogun State. What are we fixing? We are fixing the ruts created by the present administration. And then we are going to do that by ensuring that 5 pathways to prosperity are implemented. The first one is to make sure that our economic growth, the economic growth of our state is accelerated, is enhanced, is boosted. Don't forget, all these people that are there now, they brandish figures. They've given us figures of IDR that look so bogus, and one cannot but wonder, if that IDR position was correct, why do you have to hold salary if you are hitting those landmarks that you are touting that you are making? We are now going to create livable communities, create new towns. The social systems are going to be improved. The civil service, the public service will be enhanced. We'll make sure that the civil servants that have been messed up so much in the last 3.5 years, we build up their morale, we train them, we pay them very well. Then we are going to make sure that people focus infrastructure, not just infrastructure. What you have in Ogun State is a sham. That is just being...
Mr. Otegbe, yeah. So if I may jump in quickly now.
Please jump in.
So, I mean, if you look at Ogun State has benefited a lot from the status of Lagos State. Ogun State is perhaps one of the most industrial, the state with the biggest industrial hub in Nigeria. It's boasts of more companies or more industries than perhaps many of the states in the 36 states of the Federation. That is a plus. what would you be doing with that kind of status that Ogun State has? Should you be elected?
You see, the problem with the people that brandish statistics is they veil their statistics in such a way that it will tell the narrative and the stories they want to sell. Somebody once defined a statistician as someone who puts his head in the oven and his feet in the freezer and tells you on the average, I feel fine. Now, what you have only told us a part of the story. The so-called companies, when you put statistics to statistics, about 35% of those companies have died. About 35% of those companies have died. When you look at the incentive that are provided for those companies, then a lot of disincentive.
So what would you be doing differently? Should you be elected governor?
Now we are going to make sure that we give incentives to manufacturing concerns. Since you are focusing on the manufacturing sector now, we are going to give incentives for them to produce. We are going to make sure that the ease of doing business is improved. Ogun State had dropped significantly in the chart of ease of doing business. We are going to make sure that multiple taxes, they are erased, and we are going to create conducive infrastructural base that will enable them to function very well. Those are some of the things we are going to do. We are not just going to be brandishing. There are so people in Agbara.
Yeah, Mr. Otegbe. Let's wrap.
How many companies have died? If you see the litany of companies, medium-sized companies that have folded up in the last 3.5 years, then you will shake your head for this state. It will stop.
Let's anchor on this note. I know you've been drenched in the campaign activities, but if there is one thing that you want the people of Ogun State to take note of as part of your capacity that you are bringing on board, because they've not tested you before, so should they want to test you, how do you convince them? If any one of them is watching tonight, the voters in Ogun State, what would you be telling them to convince them? I'll give you 30 seconds to do that, sir.
Well, the only thing I will emphasize is that there will be transparency in governance. The gap between the leadership and the people will be bridged. I will make myself accessible to the people. And then the utilization of the resources will be optimal. There will be responsible leadership. Don't forget, the key thing that I am hammering on is failure of leadership. It appears that the present leadership is not prepared for governance. I am prepared for governance.
All right.
Aside from that, I want to tell you there are blueprints on ground for development, things that previous administration, from the time of Baba Oshoba, the time of Otumba Bengadane, the time of Senator Ibikunle Amusun, they had blueprints of development that this present administration have abandoned and discarded for whatever reason they are going to revisit those blueprints.
Thank you so much.
Sure that the legacy of the founding fathers are restored.
All right. B.E. Otegbeye is the ADC governorship candidate in Ogun State, and he says he's challenging the status quo. I wish you the very best. I hope before the 11th of January, we'll be able to get you back to speak to you more on the race. Thank you so much indeed, and it's good to see you and talk to you tonight.
Thank you, Sheung.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much, everyone, for sticking around with me. You remember what happened on Saturday? INEC mock accreditation exercise across the country. Let's take a look at what happened. China's television data analyst, Babajide Ogunsowo, joins me. Hi, Jide.
Sure.
You had there a lot of controversy after your analysis last week. Opa, are you here with some controversy this time around?
The controversy continues. If we have enough time, we'll look into it. But tonight is really all about the mock accreditation results. But again, you know what the wise man once said, controversy is only dreaded by advocates of fear. Here we stick to the facts.
Let's go.
So
you're starting with a video.
Yes, to understand what exactly happened with the mock accreditation, we had 18,619 people participate in the mock accreditation exercise. From what the commissioner said, there were 3 priorities. The first was to be able to allow voters understand and have a good understanding of how the election day will be. The second was to be able to allow the officials have a better feel of the beavers and the technology. And we saw a lot of accreditation go on, and I will explain what the data shows from the IRF portal.
All right, go ahead.
We'll show what the data from the IRF portal explains. It all went smoothly. Yes, it did. Majority of the areas we saw the beavers walk. People got into the polling units. They queued. Across the country, there were 436 polling units that were used for this, and that's the spread. 436 polling units. But there are 3.
North Central 76, Southeast 60, South 72, Southwest 72, 8, Northwest 84, Northeast 72. That's how it went, right?
That's how it went. But people are asking, what were the basis for that were used to distribution? And I'll quickly explain to that. In each state, there were 12 polling units across each of the states. And what the Independent and National Electoral Commission did was 12 polling units per state. Each state has 3 senatorial districts. And so in each of these senatorial districts, there were 4 polling units. I'll explain again. 12 polling units per state and 4 in each senatorial district. That made up the 12. So in the Northwest, for instance, there are 7 states, 12 polling units per state, 12 times 7, 84. In the North Central, you have 6 states, 12 times 6, 72 plus 4 polling units in the North Central. Northeast, same thing, 6 states, 12 states in each.
Same thing with
Southwest. And the reason why there were only 60 polling units
in 5 states.
5 states. So that was simple, 436 polling units. But here's the interesting thing. Most of those that came out to vote came from the northern region, the Northwest and the Northeast. Between these 2 zones were more than half of those that came out to vote.
For the mock accreditation.
For the mock accreditation. And if you add the North Central, clearly approximately 70% of all accreditation happened in the northern zone. So in all terms, all we see is the participation of, you see more interest from the North.
Is there a reason, perhaps?
It is not really clear, but what we've seen is, we start seeing reasons when we start drilling down into what happened per polling unit. And what has happened is the Independent National Electoral Commission uploaded all the results on its IRF portal. And so if you take time to clearly go through each of the polling units, you'll find some insights. For instance, what you will see is there's a local government in Kaduna, Liri local government, the polling unit, Korea, I hope I pronounced it well, whereby the voter turnout, 77%. In simple terms, in that polling unit for this election, you have 128 people registered. 77% of those that came out to participate in the mock accreditation turned out as we had expected. Well, here's the fact, Sean. If you look at the top 10 state, the top 10 polling units where we had the highest accreditation, 7 of those polling units are in the northern region. So you look at Kaduna, Katsina, we have 3 polling units from Katsina in the top 10. We have Borno, Kebbi. So in all, what we've seen in this mock accreditation is there was more participation from the voters in the north. The northern polling units had the higher voter turnout.
So it was only in Lagos and Rivers that could make it up to the top 10.
Now, even in Lagos, overall, Lagos performed below expectation. Now, that's just the polling units. So there was a polling unit in Shomolu where 42% of the 156 people that are registered came out for accreditation. If you are looking to look at the top 3 states where the most people came out, it was Katsina, Zamfara, and Borno. Let me put it simply in this way for you. These are the 6 regions that the 18,619 voters came from. In the Northwest, we have 6,054 people registered across those polling units. So we had 77,000 people, 77,820 registered voters in those mock polling units. 6,054 were accredited. So the voter turnout in the Northwest for those sample polling units, only 8%. Voter turnout for the sample polling units in the Northeast, 6%. Voter turnout for those sample polling units in the South-South, 4%. If we have to look at this overall top fact from the mock accreditation, here's what we'll see. The mock accreditation was conducted in 436 polling units, which we explained. There was low voter turnout during this accreditation exercise. Nationally, the average was 5%. We've seen the North have a higher average than the South. But in all, what we've also seen is that the Beavers machine is still more reliable than the backup server. Similar to what we discussed last week, there were still some polling units where the result from the Beavers machine was still not uploaded to the back-end server. So what exactly happened, which we had described last week, which had controversies, we still see that happening in the mock accreditation exercise, where not all the polling units that were used for the accreditation.
There's still those who disagreed with the manner in which, the explanation you gave last week. Are there some other things you had to say to buttress the point you made on that, the Osun scenario, which boils on the issue of beavers?
So it's like perspective, Sean. That's the glass of water that Professor Ozekhome used. If I ask you, is that glass half full or half empty, what will you say?
Well, I wouldn't know. It's not full and it's not empty.
So, but what we both agree on is there's water in the glass.
Yeah.
There's some things that we all agree on, and that's when the INEC conducted the election in July. These were the results that INEC used to declare the winner. They declared the winner based on 403,371 votes for the Senator Ademola Adeleke, and INEC declared the results for Oyetola as 375,027. These are the facts. These are also the facts based on what the tribunal released. The tribunal, in its report, stated that the petitioners had presented a few polling units, 744 out of the 3,763 polling units in Osun State. And the tribunal said, based on those few polling units that were presented, the report on the beavers was different from the one that was presented by INEC from the server. It had shown that if you cancel those polling units, Oyetola will score 314,931, and Adeleke will score 290,666.
Are the deductions made from both of them?
Deductions were made from both of them. What the tribunal simply did was that, based on the report it had in front of it, that the petitioners had presented, there were 744 polling units where Beavers accreditation did not match with server accreditation. These figures are from the tribunal's report. But here's the point. If we look at two other perspectives, rather than just look at the 744 polling units that the petitioners presented, if we take the position that why not cancel all the polling units where the Beavers accreditation was greater than the server accreditation. In other words, any polling unit where, for instance, the Beavers shows 10 accredited and the server report that was presented shows 7 accredited. Let's cancel it all. And if we do that, there will be 2,587 polling units cancelled. In other words, 69% of those that voted, their results will be cancelled. Yes, the victory will still go to Ademola Adeleke, but my point is, almost more than half of those that had voted in Osun will have their results cancelled if we go with this template. Or even if we go with another template, whereby as long as, and you need to follow this carefully, as long as the report on the beavers is different from the report on the server, cancel all the results. And if we follow the results that INEC declared, it simply means 70% of the polling units in Osun State will be cancelled, because look at the data. Only 30% of the results show the beavers being equal to the server. And that is the challenge. As we go into the presidential election, INEC has to take a position. Will the results be declared only when all the polling units results at the beavers, all the results of the beavers machine at the polling units matches with the server? Or will the results be declared as long as the total votes cast
On the beavers, physically.
Physically. So you have a choice. Either we wait on election day to make sure that all the beavers' results matches with what is on the server, or we make sure that all the total votes cast, as long as total votes cast is not greater than the accredited results.
Jide, well, yet another controversy that you have stirred up with the data they have brought forward. But thank you so much indeed.
Well, based on the laws, the beavers machine is here to stay. The beavers is reliable. And the only real difference why the beavers result is different from the server result is because the beavers cannot upload data to the server without network. And that's the key, network.
Abajide Ogunsawo, Channels Television data analyst. Thank you so much indeed for coming tonight. Well, that's our show for tonight, everyone. But we're not done with our coverage of the election. We continue until the announcement of the final result is being made right here. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching tonight. I'll see you tomorrow again at 7 p.m. I'm Socio-economic. Goodbye, and God bless Nigeria.